Il monastero e il monastero
The monastery next to the tomb of St. Paul are a sort of pointing finger towards the Absolute. It emphasizes the importance of looking upward toward God, not to detach ourselves from everyday life with its joys, difficulties and problems, but to look at them with new eyes, the eyes that come from God Himself and, above all, from the Word of His Son, the Word made flesh and transmitted to us, so that it becomes part of our lives.
parte della nostra vita.
2 kilometers outside the Aurelian walls of Rome lies the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, the final resting place of St. Paul the Apostle. This basilica is connected to a monastery that holds a special place in the heart of the Eternal City. Connected to the basilica, the complex includes a very ancient Benedictine abbey. This abbey remains active today under the direction of its abbot, Reverend Dom Donato Oliari. The Benedictine monks of the ancient abbey, founded near the tomb of the Apostle by Pope Gregory II, attend to the ministry of reconciliation and the promotion of special ecumenical events. We spoke to Reverend Dom Donato Oliari about the great reform of the Second Vatican Council that was convoked within the walls of the monastery by Pope John XXIII.
In questo preciso luogo,
In this precise location, on January 25th, 1959, Pope John XXIII announced his intention to convene the Second Vatican Council. It was an event of grace. As Pope John XXIII later said, the Church needed to open the windows and let in fresh air because perhaps there had come a time when self-referentiality was taking over and the missionary and evangelizing drive, which is what the Church should do, had been somewhat lost.
ciò che la Chiesa deve fare.
The Second Vatican Council was a moment of grace that reminded the Church to look outward as well as inward, and to place its focus on how it could better share the gospel to the whole world and the younger generations in the changing times.
Questo grande evento
This great event can be summarized with two terms, a French term, resourcement, and an Italian term used by Pope John XXIII, aggiornamento. The first tells us about the need to return to the sources in some way, a resourcement, to return to the origins, the ecclesial life, the apostolic life, to return to the gospel, to draw inspiration for our way of living and acting in the contemporary world. And on the other hand, the need to combine this resourcement with aggiornamento because the world changes, and we live in the world. We are not secluded. We do not live outside of
siamo
it.
estrusi, non viviamo al di fuori di esso.
At the center of the reforms of the Second Vatican Council lies a tension. How do you render contemporary a deposit of faith that is ever true and unchanging, while rendering it accessible to the modern world?
Ecco, quindi questo
There's this need to make the gospel message contemporary. The faith itself doesn't change, of course.
The Benedictine monastery in the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls carries the traditions and vocations of two figures, St. Paul and St. Benedict, while also welcoming the energy of the Second Vatican Council.
si è trattato di ridare
It was about revitalizing and removing everything that smelt of stagnation, hindering and obstructing the process of evangelization. Therefore, in the wake and light of the Second Vatican Council, these two figures, St. Paul and St. Benedict, who coexist here in the Basilica and this Abbey, not as opposing personalities, but as two different ways of contributing to the same objective.
due modi diversi di contribuire allo stesso obiettivo.
St. Paul the Apostle and the Second Vatican Council provide a roadmap for the Church to more effectively share its message with the world and for every believer to take their faith into their everyday lives.